Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, February 28th through Sunday, March 6th. And I'm calling this week's forecast Into the Fog because that's pretty much what's going on right now. We're really entering this period where we're not really aware of what's going on, that things are kind of fuzzy or dreamy, and we'll actually become more aware of this once the Sun and Mercury enter Aries, because at that point, once we enter spring in a little bit less than a month, then we'll realize how asleep we've actually been during the period that we're in now, if that makes sense. With Neptune and Jupiter that have already been in Pisces, these are both our planets that rule Pisces or have a connection to Pisces. So there's a lot of strong Piscean energy there. Of course, now the Sun is in Pisces, and then this week the Moon will join the Sun. The Moon will go through Pisces. We'll have a new Moon in Pisces, and so with all this Pisces energy, we really aren't aware of what's going on, not in a conscious way. And it's interesting because with all the planets direct right now, there is so much new activity going on. There's so many changes and adjustments, so many waves of energy coming in. I think, we can all, I think, relate to some degree, whether it be personally or even on a world plane with world events. We're really in uncharted territory. So the combination of that with these kind of dreamy Piscean energies, adding all this kind of confusion and mystery is really, really interesting. I think it can drive you crazy if you want to figure everything out. If you're coming at this from like a Virgo perspective and you're wanting to make everything known, it's really not about that this week. You have to just really roll with the punches and go with the flow, because there's just no calculating what's going on right now. I don't think we're meant to have that sort of understanding of what's happening right now. So anyway, let me go through some of the aspects that are happening this week, and then we'll get into the forecast. So this week we have America's Neptune opposition happening at the beginning of the week. So yeah, that's a big one. I talked about America's Pluto return, which happened just a couple weeks ago. Now we've got a Neptune opposition. This is also very rare. It's not as rare as the Pluto return, since America's just had its first Pluto return. That's a really big deal. But the Neptune opposition is a pretty big deal as well. Neptune is a very slow planet. It's pretty much out there by Pluto. Um, so anyway, Neptune transiting is opposing the placement that Neptune was at during America's founding. So what that means is we are being subjected to a lot of misinformation, disinformation, a lot of propaganda. And whenever Neptune squares or opposes America's Neptune position, everyone gets kind of crazy with their beliefs. There's a lot of radical beliefs. There's a lot of clashes between belief systems, and a lot of it has been religious historically, but there's other things as well. So for instance, like even beliefs with like diet come into play, beliefs of how one should live their life, and that isn't just religious or philosophical. That's really applies to all areas of life. So as I'm kind of rattling off here, I think the themes of this aspect or transit are pretty clear. We're all kind of divided into these like really strong opinions, strong belief systems right now. And, we're all, I think, kind of tense and sensitive because everything is so political and so opinionated and so controversial. Even things that are pretty mundane, pretty ordinary are actually now controversial. You can hardly really get into any kind of topic of conversation without upsetting anyone. So this is part of the Neptune opposition, and this too marks a transition point, a turning point with America's history. And I always say this really applies to the whole world. It's not just America. So anyway, so there's that. There's also the Pisces New Moon, which I touched on. So that's, like I always say, the new moon really kickstarts that sign's energy. So yes, we are in the Pisces season, but Pisces season begins even more so once we get that new moon in Pisces. So we'll really, really become immersed in the energies of Pisces. We also have Venus making an exact conjunction to Mars. Now, Venus is continuing to be right side by side to Mars. They've been pretty much conjunct for really the last half of February for sure, and then they'll continue to be conjunct through most of March, and by conjunct, I mean within, a couple degrees of one another. But they do make that exact conjunction this week, and they actually do so pretty much right as they enter Aquarius. So they enter Aquarius together, basically, and then make that exact conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius. So that's very rare. That's very unusual what Venus and Mars are doing. They're kind of teaming up together and entering Aquarius together. So that's really interesting as well. So I'll get into that here shortly. But without further ado, let's get into the forecast. So we start out Monday, February 28th with the moon in Aquarius. And here you can see the moon is crossing over Mercury. It will also cross over Saturn today. So this is bringing up some, it's a lot of like dry energy. I always say, air is very light, so very detached. It allows us to kind of be spontaneous and playful, to be experimental. But it can also be kind of serious, especially with Saturn and Mercury together are very kind of logical energies, very kind of emotionless energies, I would say. And also the moon is winding down. The moon is a waning crescent right now. It's losing its light, barely visible in the sky at all. So things are kind of winding down, becoming a little bit less active. However, in the general context of what's going on, all the planets are direct. So we're in a relatively uneventful time within a larger context that's very eventful, if that makes sense. In other words, Monday will be relatively uneventful compared to the rest of the week and compared to the rest of the month and the year. We're in the middle of this very, very tumultuous time. So take that for what it's worth. But let's see what else here. So that's the main really energy, moon in Aquarius. So we're kind of, I think this is a sort of philosophical energy, especially combined with the Pisces sun. We're kind of questioning things, playing devil's advocate. This energy is kind of good for looking at things from different perspectives. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting start to the week though, because really this is a closing phase. It's the end of the lunar cycle. So it doesn't really feel like the beginning of the week. So it might be kind of hard to start your week on Monday because the energies are closing out. They're becoming, relatively restful, not really starting productivity. So that's might be kind of off balance, offbeat. But otherwise, pretty decent day. Looks pretty peaceful. The moon is not at a really harmonious aspect with the sun, but it's not clashing with it either. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but generally peaceful, generally calm. As we go forward to Tuesday, March 1st, the moon enters Pisces. And so I always say, once the moon enters the sign that it will make that, in this case, the new moon aspect, we're already experiencing the new moon basically. At this point, the moon has basically no light. It's not visible. And so we're already experiencing that new moon. And it's interesting because new moons in general are kind of non-physical. They're ethereal. They're like the focus is not about physical manifestation. There's not activity in the physical plane. The activity is more imaginative or maybe emotional, or it's behind the scenes. It's covert, or it's not obvious. It's metaphysical in nature. And it's interesting because a lot of these themes correlate to Pisces as well. So having a Pisces new moon is, I don't know, it's very fitting. So I would say it's almost kind of potent. And I think, in my opinion, the moon is pretty strong in Pisces as well, even though it's not technically in domicile or exalted. So all this really means, all this boils down to, this is an excellent time for reflection, for pausing, for imagination, intuition, and creativity. But also, it's really just a time for resting, I think. New moons are the least active part of the lunar cycle. And especially in Pisces, which is all about kind of integration, Pisces can be an escapist, but sometimes that escapism isn't to go on some wild adventure. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just about resting. It can be about, sleep, about dreams. Allowing yourself to integrate, allowing yourself that time to pause. So those are the themes of this new moon as we would experience it through today, through Tuesday. And we'll really experience that once it becomes exact on Wednesday. Also on Tuesday, though, we have America's Neptune opposition is exact. So it's at Technically, it's earlier in the day. It's at 22 degrees and 25 minutes of Pisces. So yeah, and this is a really long-term aspect. Neptune is so slow, so it, this, these long-term aspects like this can be marked by an event that's kind of pinpointed, on or around, in this case, March 1st. But it doesn't have to be. These are long term events, these are long cycles. So, really, this just marks the midpoint of a larger phase of, ideological warfare, spirituality. On the one hand, people are having, more of an interest maybe in figuring out their beliefs and becoming, learning about their reality, learning about maybe the most ideal way to live their lives. That's, definitely positive. There can be some self-improvement involved in all of that. But at the same time, this is Pisces. There's a lot of confusion, fear, manipulation, and this is common with these aspects, like I was saying before, that we sort of become pitted against one another. We have these clashes of ideologies. We can become fragmented, and yeah, you can just look around and see that today. So again, this is, marked by March 1st, but we've already been experiencing this for a long time now, for months or even years, and we'll continue to experience it for months or years to come as well. We're just in the midpoint of that. Going forward to March 2nd, Wednesday. Now we finally have that actual new moon, the exact new moon at 12 degrees Pisces. So this is a beginning. Everything I said from Tuesday applies to Wednesday. And this week is so funny because, it's really not, it doesn't look like a very productive week. It looks kind of sleepy or confused. This time would be best spent resting or maybe being creative. If we are being productive, it would be something involving integration, creativity, something kind of coming from a place of emotion or spirituality. Those types of things would be really excellent to be productive with, but it just doesn't look like the best energy that would be conducive to, work as we know it, to mundane work. With all these Pisces energies, we're kind of thinking outside of the box. We're being creative and, intuitive, asking the bigger questions. But again, there's this dichotomy that I keep touching on with Pisces, that on the one hand, there's spirituality and, enlightenment, increased consciousness and awareness, integration, intuition, psychic abilities. On the other hand, there's this confusion and fear, this mist. The mysticism can be, misty, foggy. We're uncertain. We're in a kind of dream time. I think that's really what is so powerful about Pisces, is the dream time itself. If you're dreaming, it could mean that you are, not awake. You're not aware. You're just you're absent-minded, or you're not paying attention. But on the other hand, dreams can be actually a very valuable source of information. Dreams are how we integrate information as well, how we process what's been happening to us, process experiences. That's the way you kind of turn your experience into knowledge and wisdom, is through integration, through processing it. So that's a lot of what this new moon is about, since it's in Pisces here. Okay, and then we've also got the sun. Well, the sun and really this new moon makes a sextile to Uranus. So there could be some really positive changes to finances, to the economy, to new commodities. And these changes could have to do with spirituality or, intuition in some way. So maybe, stocks or businesses involving creativity and intuition, spirituality, those may be kind of volatile in a positive way, swinging, up in value. Valued suddenly more, that type of thing. Or also it could just be that there's some kind of positive, unpredictable but positive change to our economy, to finances, that somehow comes from spirituality or inspiration, from creativity. There's something mystic about it, some kind of mysticism there. Okay, and then the last aspect for today is Mercury crossing over Saturn at 19 degrees Aquarius. So this could just mean that we're a little bit blunt and dry, maybe a little bit cold with our mannerisms, with how we are communicating and thinking right now. I think this aspect could mark like really heavy energy. So we could be, the more we get into the logical mind and we're analyzing and intellectualizing things, we can embrace the energies of Saturn. So we can feel maybe a little bit down or dark. We could be a little bit depressed. We could feel like there's a lot of responsibility, a lot of weight on our shoulders right now. But the positive side of this would be we're thinking in a very realistic way. We're thinking in a very long term, pragmatic way. So this allows us to be really structured and disciplined in our perspective, which is great for setting goals or being productive. Reassessing our commitments and our investments, that type of thing. So that's kind of the nature of this aspect here. But this is pretty quick. Mercury's flying by. This really just applies to March 2nd. Okay, going forward to Thursday, March 3rd. Moon enters Aries already. And so that's a huge shift, right? Whenever planets enter Aries, Pisces is the last sign, Aries is the first. So they're very different. Signs that are next to one another are always different, but Pisces and Aries are especially very different. So with the moon in Aries, it's really fitting as well because it's a new moon. The moon has crossed over the sun, so it's literally a new moon. Probably not really visible yet. It's, maybe a sliver at best. But it's literally a new moon, and then it's in the sign of Aries, which is so fitting for anything new, for beginnings, for initiations. So that's really excellent. And then once the moon starts to get a little bit of light later in the week, we'll get a lot more energy and really kind of swing forward. We'll gain a lot of consciousness and maybe a little bit of clarity after this really heavy Pisces transit here. So that will start to begin on Wednesday, but it will start out small and kind of begin. It will grow exponentially later as we get into the week here. Let's see here. Okay, but Thursday we've got Venus and Mars are crossing over Pluto at 27 degrees. So they're all three of them are pretty much conjunct at 27 degrees or right around that point today. Okay, so this is interesting. Triple conjunctions are interesting. Okay, so with Venus and Mars and Capricorn, I've digested that multiple times, obviously, since that has been going on for so long. But they're really adding a lot of desire, attraction, a lot of ambition and pleasure to the structure of our lives, to investments, commitments, to long-term plans and goals. And now all of that desire and attraction in those areas is being combined with Pluto. So there's this kind of dark transformation, this maybe very long-term heavy parts of our lives may be transformed. And I think this is positive. Venus and Mars are so playful, and it is so much about pleasure and attraction and desire. So combining this with Pluto, on the one hand, on the maybe darker side, this could mark unbridled desire or lust. So maybe desiring power or wealth, and there could be some very dark aspects of that come out, because Pluto is kind of the destroyer. It destroys whatever is not good or just. So it could bring out some of the nastier elements of desire and destroy those who are, I don't know, using desire wrongfully or in a way that is not long lasting. If someone's being wasteful or hurting others or being vindictive or untrue with their desires, especially with their long term plans or what their goals are, then their destruction and their demise could be brought on by this aspect here. And but on the positive side, or on the maybe less serious side, there could be some kind of transformation with our goals at this time, and it would be something that we can, like, on the one hand, it is hard work that we're doing here. Capricorn is always kind of hard work that we have to do on our own usually. But with Venus and Mars there, we're having fun doing it, and there's this kind of transformation there. So there could be some kind of transformation with our goals, our long-term situation. Let's see, also the structure to our lives, our foundation. There could be some kind of really pivotal transformation there that we seek out, that we're working toward, and we're working toward it again because we're getting some kind of pleasure there. We're ambitious to take on these changes in our goals. So definitely a weird aspect there, but very interesting. And this is a little bit dark as well. This week is It's kind of weird. I mean, there's so much fog and mist, and then we've got Mercury crossing over Saturn, which is kind of heavier, and then Venus and Mars crossing over Pluto, which is heavier. So these are kind of some heavy, intense energies. We're, I'm picturing it like a soup or like a mist that's so thick that you can't see, but then in the mist or in the fog, there's, I don't know, vague like heavy shapes, some kind of intensity there, heaviness. It's almost like the fog is like weighing down on you. It's kind of a pressurized week. So definitely very interesting. It's nothing too depressing or scary, but just kind of some more intense energies, I would say. Going forward to Friday, March 4th, Moon crosses over Chiron in Aries. This is always something to look out for protests. I know there's multiple protests going on right now in the world, so these could be ignited or inflamed more so with the moon crossing over Aries. There could be resolutions there. I know there's already been some resolutions to some protests as I'm making this video, but I would look out for further resolutions or clashes as well. So protests either getting out of hand and causing clashing, but on the other hand, there could be resolutions there as well. Some kind of change in those. And then also, like I said, the moon is gaining light now. It's starting to maybe become visible a little bit. And so there's a little bit of clarity. There's a lot of whenever you combine Pisces and Aries energies, it becomes very dysfunctional, very disorderly because they're so different. They don't really combine or integrate well. Aries is boldly going out and starting new things, so it's wanting us to be impulsive and to initiate basically at the core of it. But then Pisces is closing everything out, wanting to integrate and reflect and pause and escape. So combining both of those is very dysfunctional. So there could be maybe accidents at this time. And part of it too is because Aries is so action oriented, but Pisces is, we're still in this fog. So Moon in Aries is having us want to be impulsive and go out and conquest, to start new things. But how can we do that when we're in this fog, when we can't see what we're doing, we can't see what's happening, we don't have that larger view, we're not really conscious of what's happening right now. So I would just look out for that kind of general dysfunction to the day here, especially Friday. And this Chiron aspect really just kind of exacerbates it as well. Things are dysfunctional. I think especially Chiron can make people feel awkward because there's almost increased empathy. But empathy is, of course, it's good to have empathy for one another, and this can be really great for gaining that understanding, that mutual understanding between us together. And this can be really great for bringing out, conversations about past traumas or wounds with Moon crossing over Chiron in Aries. But on the other hand, it can be just very dysfunctional as well. So yeah, just something to look out for. And this will fade pretty soon here over the weekend. On Saturday, March 5th, Moon is still on Aries. Sun crosses over Jupiter at 15 degrees Pisces. So this is really great because Jupiter is a benefic. It's planet of luck and abundance, so it brings a lot of an expansion. So there's a lot of really positive, uplifting, inspiring themes there. And especially in Pisces, where Jupiter is in domicile, this can be really great for expansion, especially like spiritually or non-physically, philosophically. But at the same time, Jupiter, the only double-edged sword with Jupiter, the main way that it can be challenging is that expansion isn't always good. In this case, Jupiter is just expanding the sun's energy. So the sun is also a benefic. It's generally positive, really great energy for being vibrant, being energetic, being proud of ourselves. Really great for embracing our individuality. So this looks like a really positive, really harmonious aspect to the day here. Jupiter conjunct Sun in Pisces, and it's in a way that's very kind of uncontrolled and unpredictable. So we can kind of just embrace whatever's happening. I said at the beginning of this video, you really just have to roll with the punches, go with the flow. I think this really applies to all week, but with this aspect in particular, Jupiter conjunct Sun in Pisces, this definitely goes to that as well. So it is, great for expansion and luck and abundance. But it's in Pisces, so the way you would get that abundance and that good fortune, the way you would make the most of it is not by, not even by like working hard or figuring it out. It's not in Virgo, it's not in Capricorn. It's not about working hard necessarily. It's really about just, throwing up your hands and just going along for the ride like a roller coaster or something. That's kind of how Pisces operates. You have to just embrace the universe, basically. So that's what I would suggest, to just kind of go along for the ride. Don't put a lot of effort into necessarily figuring all the details out right now, because it will be pretty much impossible. That will only come later on in these cycles here. Okay, and then Sunday, March 6th, moon enters Taurus. This is really, really beautiful. I love this because not only is the moon exalted in Taurus, so it's generally the easiest sign for the moon to be in. It's the best placement for us to be emotionally grounded as the moon goes through Taurus and feel kind of secure, to feel, weighted down, grounded. But yeah, and also, the reason why moon is exalted in Taurus is because it's very secure, it's very firm in itself, it knows its boundaries, so it has that really solid sense of identity, and it knows how to support itself and nourish itself, but also it's very receptive with others as well. It's receptive of others, emotions and needs as well. So it has that really kind of balanced personality. But the moon is beginning to sextile the sun, since it's 2 signs away. And so yeah, this is really, really beautiful, and especially with moon in Taurus where it's exalted, making that waxing sextile. This means that the moon is gaining light, of course, since it's in this kind of beginning part of the lunar cycle. So this, I would say, would just be a general feeling of well-being, and I think Sunday looks really more beautiful than any other day of this week in terms of just feeling positive, feeling balanced, going with the flow of the energies. We'll be able to kind of get a handle on things. Pisces and Taurus complement each other very well. And I think we may have felt very ungrounded through a lot of this week because, with all that Pisces energy, there was just nothing to really hold on to or quantify. So with Moon and Taurus, we get a little bit back on our feet again, a little bit back on the ground. And it matches up with these Pisces energies beautifully. So really just great, just generally speaking. And it looks really relaxing. It's kind of perfect for a Sunday. Pisces combining with Taurus is a more relaxed vibe. It's easygoing, and it's really great for, pleasure seeking. Taurus can be a little bit hedonistic. It likes to support itself with comfortable clothes or kind of homey foods and such. So yeah, really kind of comfy, cozy vibe for Sunday. It looks really beautiful. Okay, and then this is also where Venus and Mars enter Aquarius and then immediately conjoin at 0 degrees. So very interesting. So the focus for Venus and Mars is now shifting to Aquarius, and they both, conjunctions are beginnings as one planet passes another, like in this case. That itself is a beginning. And then also as the planets enter a sign, of course, that's a beginning as well. So this marks a major beginning involving what we desire, what we're ambitious about, where we are, getting our pleasure from, what we're valuing in that sense, in that regard. So it's shifting from Capricorn. It's been very heavy, very practical, or very, much about these long-term goals and such, like I've been saying. And it's been that way for really the better part of the last 2 months. Now, the desire, the attraction, the ambition is shifting to something a little bit more ethereal, something a little bit more abstract. We are not just focusing on, long-term plans and goals, figuring out the structure of our lives. Now we're broadening our perspective more so and thinking about, what kind of world do we want to live in? What kind of society do we want to be a part of? How do we work to accomplish that? So these types of goals and visions are more abstract. They're more dreamy. They're not as, practical necessarily like Capricorn. They're more ethereal or abstract in nature, and they're more holistic. So they're pertaining more so to the world, or the entire community, the globe, the country, etc. And Capricorn is more personal. So yeah, this is kind of just representing the broadening of our desires. And there's also more of a desire, I guess just that, a desire for society to be a certain way. So, there may be people more involved politically, or, with protests, or, more involved with their community in general, communities, that type of thing. Let's see. And and also this just shows that we may be more involved with not just our larger community, but any kind of groups that you're involved with as well. Any kind of groups, clubs, could be your place of work, even if that's, kind of where your social network is. I think a lot of us, that's how it is. So that's kind of where you're, where all of our, on a very general level, of course, that's where our kind of pleasure, desire, and ambition will be for this next cycle here. And that's pretty much what I have for you for this week. So stay tuned. Next week, Mercury enters Pisces. So that's going to be really interesting. A lot more of those kind of foggy, dreamy vibes. We've also got a first quarter moon next week. So yeah, really interesting times that we're in. A lot is changing. So much is happening. And I hope everyone's okay. I know, I think change is hard. There's so much change happening. So many new things. But we're getting through it. And astrology's just kind of, at the very least, if this just allows you to feel like what's going on, I think I've done my job, because I think just not getting completely swept up in the confusion and carried away in it, is something that we're all kind of trying to do. So if we can just keep one foot on the ground here and stay grounded, stay positive, and that's kind of the name of the game, I guess. So anyway, without further ado, thanks for watching. If you have any comments, questions, if you'd like a reading, email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.